Alright, carrying on with this assembly, let's get on to the last few tasks. So, the film release lever, the film release button I should probably say. I'll just apply a bit of lubricant in here. That's the big spring that goes on there, that sits like that. And here we have the exposure meter. Now that was stuck back with a nasty big screw there which wasn't achieving an awful lot, and big blobs of adhesive. So we'll put the original screw in there and I'll put some lacquer on that to lock it in place, and basically all I'm doing is providing a stop that the meter can't push back past. I'm not attempting to hold down the meter with this screw at all. There's nothing left to clamp on. That thread is not particularly good in the housing there. I'm just checking the position of this. That's good. Alright. Making sure that shutter release shaft is not disturbed. It's doing its best to get away. Don't want that. Might just press that shaft up a little bit, that bracket up a little bit, just so it's just looks a little bit bent still. I'll just give that a little touch with a, oh yes, that's better. Obviously not as much strength there as there should be. Okay, what do I want? Normally I lock this screw here with just a touch of lacquer to stop that backing out. Not a great blob. So I'll get some on a toothpick and drop it in there. And some on the other side. That's just to stop that screw coming loose. I don't really expect that it will. Since this screw is going to be holding virtually nothing there, I'm just going to put a blob of that on the bottom there too, to stop that backing out. The thread in the casting there is not good, and it'll be because somebody forced that foreign screw down into the hole. Normally at this stage I would apply a little bit of lubricant here. I'm using that synthetic grease, and I'll put some there and some on this back face. A little touch here. I've already put some on this rack, but a little bit more won't hurt. That will do. So the exposure meter can now be popped into place. Our shutter release button sits on here. I'm checking that shutter release once more, make sure it's through the hole. Yes, it's all good. Check that I haven't put fingerprints on anything important. Take my top cover, slide it over the meter, and check my film advance. I'm watching the frame counter to see that it moves one frame and not more than one frame. I see that shutter release button is tending to stick there. It means something's bent. It's a bit stiff. Film release button is good by comparison. That's fine now. It must have just been misaligned top cover. That's good. I'm also checking that when I put pressure on the shutter release that I hear the film advance being released at the same time as the shutter fires, or as close as I can achieve. That's the film advance releasing. See, I could wind on again without firing the shutter. So the film advance releases first, then the shutter. So I'll remove the top cover, remove the meter. I'm going to give this screw a quarter of a turn and then put everything back and see how it behaves. There's the film release, there's the shutter. Now there's very little between those two, but there's certainly something, so a little bit more. In an ideal world, those two actions would happen at the same moment. In the world we really live in, they hardly ever do. But you do your best to get it right. It's very annoying if every time you want to take a photo, you've got to press the film release button, because by being extremely gentle on the shutter release, you'd failed to release the film release advanced. That's okay. Still not 100% happy with the position of that thing, and it may be something to do with that top cover. I think it's tending to slide down that way too much. I'm going to have a little look at this bracket down the end of the camera, because I suspect that this is bent too far that way. So I'm just going to give it a tweak. Of course, this sort of thing is not at all uncommon, because cameras get dropped, and when they get dropped, stuff gets bent. Let's see how we go. I'm looking at that shutter release and seeing it's sitting very close to the front of the body there. That's causing it to rub, so what's going on? I wonder whether that shaft is a little bit bent. I'm not going to pull it out. I'm just going to give it a little nudge in the direction I want it to go. Because if I pull it out, I'm likely to end up losing that sleeve, and I don't want to do that. Let's see, here we go. That's good. That's exactly what we want. That's working very reliably, very smoothly. At frame counter, I'm checking. The numbers come up in the middle of the notch. That's good. 2 screws for the top cover at this end, 1 on the end. They're the chrome plated screws. A bit rough looking. Someone's had a poke at those with something they shouldn't. Not at all uncommon. Here's the first. Oh, this one's a bit uglier. Here's the second. You probably can't see that, but I can see the colour of the brass through the chrome. One screw at the end. It doesn't want to line up. It looks not too bad. Of course, we know that bracket's a little bit out of shape. Okay, it's in. Top cover's screwed up tight. Let's check. The shutter release is nice. The film release button is nice. That's good. The rewind knob. There's the chrome trim that goes on the top. And here's our rewind knob. Spin that on. Something through the fork to stop the shaft from spinning. Do it up by hand. That's that. That's the top of the camera apart from the meter scales there, which we've got to set up. At the bottom of the camera, we've got to take this off, glue the leatherettes back, put the film, the back catch cover on there with a new spring to replace the missing one, and we should be in business. But first, coffee, I think. Okay, well, I've got everything here I think I need in order to finish this. Put the leatherette back on the base of this camera. So first I'll remove that advanced lever. And here's my leatherette. I've cleaned that up, got rid of the lumps and bumps. I'll apply some adhesive. Alright, that applies the bulk of it. Now I just need to spread it out so it goes everywhere. It looks very dry. I think I'll have to apply more. It's quite warm. It's probably losing its solvent very quickly. It's a good start. Let's just put a blob here and spread it about where I want it to be. Not enough there. Not enough around there. And there. And there. And especially there. That's good. It's going tacky. That's fine. Lift that off. And fit that in place. Now leatherettes typically shrink. It's just something that happens with age. And I don't know whether it's because the plastic loses its plasticizers, but they're always a snug fit. So that's good. And just rubbing with your finger is enough to rub the excess adhesive off where it's squeezed it out from the underneath the edges. That looks quite good. There's a little thread sitting there and annoying me, so I'll just trim that off. And I need to get that tucked in down around that release button, back catch release button. It's a bit snug around there. That'll be from the leatherette shrinking, of course. This leatherette was quite rough and it had quite a bit of corrosion products on the back of it. It's never going to be particularly pretty because of that. Just going to rub a little bit of grease around there. And then I'm going to push the button in once or twice so that the grease has gone in between it and the leatherette, and then it doesn't get glued. We don't want that button getting glued in place. That wouldn't be any good at all. Alright, the advanced lever can go back on. There are 3 screws for the advanced lever, 2 that we had in there and 1 that is still sitting in the parts tray. Get round there, you, and that's better. There's a leatherette patch to go on this advanced lever. That screw thread is just not good. Where's my last screw? There it is. Now I've cleaned all the dirt and rubbish off that knob. Here's our leatherette patch, and this is how I apply the adhesive to a small thing like that. So I just put the adhesive on another piece of paper and transfer it with a toothpick. Just make sure that that's covering it well. This is not particularly good, this leatherette patch. It's oh, it was removed when I got it, and I think that might not have been, the bloke who removed it might not have been quite careful enough. I'm sure he thought he was being pretty good. Alright, so I'll apply this to the advanced lever. Press it down in place. And you can see that looks pretty good. Hard pressed to tell there's anything wrong with that. I'll see if I can get rid of that little thread. Yeah, I can. That looks fine. That's no problem at all. So the back catch cover. This was missing its spring, of course. I've had to find a spring for it. So I put one of the screws through the top, and in the longer of the slots here, that's where the spring lives. So it has to fit between that screw and the moving section. You can see it in there. And carefully, without disturbing it, fit it in place and run that screw in. Now we have a spring-loaded cover, which is what we lacked earlier. So there's the other screw. This tripod socket was loose, of course, when we started, wasn't it? So the whole lot would have been wobbling about. There we go. That's the base of the camera dealt with, and it only leaves us to deal with the exposure meter dials. And here they are. I'm just cleaning these of all the old grease and dirt and rubbish. You can see there's a few components there. Just find my Ronsonol. Starting here. It's the bit you grab with your fingers. This piece is the scale ring with all your film speeds on it. There's the spring that pops up underneath it, and that gives it a little bit of friction. Here's the piece that you adjust to adjust your film speed. I'll just clean these components up. That will probably do. Now to assemble it. you can see there's two knobs sticking up there. Well, they just couple with these two holes here. The spring ring just needs a little bit of lubricant on it, and I'm just using that synthetic grease there. On top of that goes the film speed scale, and I know that it sits somewhere about there. On top of that goes that plain washer. On top of that goes this piece. Let's keep that all centered. On top of that goes that little wavy washer. And on top of the wavy washer goes our retaining screw. And if I can find my screwdriver, we'll just run that up. Now, if the meter is working pretty well, that it's close to original specifications, if you turn this dial right round to its stop, the 18 is off in the corner there, the film speed scale, that's your 1300 ASA mark there, but that is that white line should be somewhere around the 17 mark. And that is a good place to start. Now, if the meter is working fairly evenly, if it responds to light fairly well, that will be about right. I'm going to go away and test this on a calibrated light source, and I'm going to test that. And what you do, provided it's good, is you can turn this dial. There's two little holes in the black ASA scale ring, and you can move it one way or the other until the readings look good. And that's what I'm about to do. Okay, well, I've tested the meter. I'm happy that everything's good. So this camera is all back together and working. And I'm much happier than the bag of bits it was when it came here to start off with. Thanks for watching.